This is the last video as part of the content coverage for Chapter 4. It's also the last video before your midterm, so stick around at the end and I'll say a few things about that. Let's look back at this argument that we looked at the start of the chapter. 90% of freshmen at State University are resident of the states. Premise 1. Premise 2. Elena is a freshman at State University. Conclusion. Elena is a resident of the state. Some of you may have been thinking to yourselves, hey, wouldn't it be better to say something like Elena is probably a resident of the state rather than just claiming Elena is a resident of the state full stop? After all, there's that good 10% chance that she's part of the freshmen at State University who aren't residents of the state. Or what about this argument, where we've got 1,200 of the 2,000 voters polled plan to vote for the incumbent. Therefore, 60% of all voters plan to vote for the incumbent. Wouldn't it be, better to say something like roughly 60% of all voters plan to vote for the incumbent, or 60% of all voters plus or minus 10% plan to vote for the incumbent? We're much less likely to make an error if we state one of those things rather than just 60% of all voters plan to vote for the incumbent. What are the odds it'll actually be exactly 60%? The short answer is that you're onto something here if you had those sort of questions. The weaker you make the conclusion, the more likely it is to be correct. But there is a cost in how much precision you have when you weaken it. So for example, when the data strongly suggests that most F's are G's, and you conclude from this that some F's are G's, you're most certainly correct. But you've said something quite imprecise. Similarly, very precisely expressed conclusions, like the one that exactly 60% of voters will vote for the incumbent, they're more likely to be incorrect. Whether you favor precision or certainty in the expression of the conclusion of an argument should depend on what your purposes are. But it is important to be able to assess these factors when you examine the arguments of others. Okay, so that's all for Chapter 4. Your midterm is coming up. The best way to prep for that, look over the old quizzes. Also do the optional homework for Chapter 4. Not only does it give you extra credit points, but it'll help prep you on the Chapter 4 part for the midterm. All right. Good luck with that, and I'll see you when you start work on Chapter 6.